Turns out Pelosi is signaling, according to The Hill, that this deal is within range, close quote, of a deal with the White House. What they need is, says, we're within range, substantially improved agreement, she says. Now we need to see our progress in writing that she and Robert Lighthizer discussed. And as you know, Steve is doubtful, but I say, with the legislative days left between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I say it goes up for a vote and gets done.
Before the end of the year. I think that's very optimistic. It would be great for the United States. Ultimately, I think she will not do it before the end of the year because it would be giving the president a win at the same time that she's trying to impeach him.
But if you want to win, don't you want to win when no one's looking? And people are so focused on the Cracker Barrel and Christmas, right? They're not going to be saying, hey, what, did USMCA pass? Who deserved credit for that? So that's my hope. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is that we are awaiting Kellyanne Conway. So she's going to provide some color.
She is getting wired up on the north lawn of the White House right now.
Excellent. And keep in mind, we just had that development that Lighthizer came to with China. That's a step forward. So even while there are
it's not done yet, but it's optimistic.
Right, a step forward. And so even while the Democrats are kind of preventing development on the left, we have developments in the right.
And speaking of the Democrats, Politico had an item, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that talked about how vulnerable Democrats in, you know what, let's bring in Kellyanne Conway right now. She's all wired up. She's in the press briefing room. Hey, Kellyanne, let's talk to you a little bit. I'm sure you saw that Politico item a couple of days ago that talked about how vulnerable Democrats are watching in horror because a Republican-aligned group is running these TV ads in their home districts, and it's really impacting the public perception on what's going on regarding the impeachment. And the Democrats are going, hey, Nancy Pelosi and company, you know, somebody's got to have our back right now because we're being left out to dry.
Increasingly, that is what's happening, and that will continue to happen, I predict, as they are home for the Thanksgiving holiday, and their constituents very logically ask them, what have you done for me lately? And if the answer is, I'm busy impeaching the president, they'll recognize that as Adam Schiff's ego trip and not a serious exercise. Look at what happened overnight. You have Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence in a heavily Democratic district that Hillary Clinton carried with over 60% of the vote in 2018, changing her mind from October 4th and saying, I'm not there for impeachment. I think maybe I'll go for censure, but I'm not there for impeachment. Yesterday, a freshman congresswoman from Iowa said the same thing. She was asked, what are you doing there? Why are you doing this? This is before the articles are even drafted, but this is after 2 weeks and 12 witnesses and 30 hours of testimony and a big nothing. The American people know. They see the split screen. Impeachment over here, and what's important to them over there. And you know what's important to them? The president receiving a foreign leader yesterday, applauding Conan, the dog that was there when al-Baghdadi, the world's most wanted terrorist, was taken out and detonating his suicide vest to kill his own children, this animal. And yet the media was criticizing the way the president received Conan the dog, much the way they criticized the way he took out al-Baghdadi and what he had to say afterwards. But you know what people see? They see a president who stands up for America and American national security. Yesterday in the Oval Office, the president signed a piece of legislation, and one is the centennial coin to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of women's suffrage, the right to vote, which the celebrations will carry into next year. And then he turned around and signed into law the Prevent Animal Cruelty Act. No president had ever done this. It's President Donald J. Trump who now makes it a felony to torture or called crush or kill an animal for no good reason. Today, he will sign an executive order on missing and murdered indigenous women. We have over 5,000 Native American women and Alaska Native women who are missing or murdered. The crime rate there, the trafficking rate there, the drug rate there is so significant, and this president is taking action. So people see the split screen. The stock market hit another all-time high yesterday. So this is why the Democrats, and not just the ones, beginning with, but not just the ones any longer, in the 31 districts that Trump-Pence carried in 2016 and that Democrats won in 2018, it's actually metastasized beyond that.
Kellyanne, I was just saying The Hill has this story today that Nancy Pelosi said the USMCA is within range of a deal. What they need is Robert Lighthizer to put down in writing what they talked about a couple of days ago. What do you hear? Could you shed some light on that? And do you think there's enough legislative days if Nancy Pelosi wanted to put that on the board?
Well, Nancy Pelosi is under enormous pressure to make good on her stated promise that they were going to get a vote on USMCA by, quote, the end of October.
Right.
Last I checked the calendar, November 26th, we're at the end of November. But the intervening superseding circumstance has been this impeachment ego trip for Democrats who are in safe districts like her and Schiff. And so she should do this. The USMCA would be great for farmers, great for auto manufacturers, great for auto buyers, great for auto workers. It's great for the American economy. And just yesterday, Mexico, again, was urging Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House here, to put it to a vote. How embarrassing is it to America that Mexico and Canada long ago approved the USMCA deal for this continent, for this hemisphere, and they're waiting on the U.S. Congress, and they turn on the TV or they flip on the internet and they say, this is where you're spending your time. So I think Pelosi's under enormous pressure to have some wins other than trying to impeach the president or having a resolution to condemn a tweet. This is basically what they've done this entire calendar year. We're on the one-year anniversary of her becoming speaker, and she and the squad have squat to show for it. So she's under enormous pressure to pass USMCA. The president is ready, pen in hand. Ambassador Lighthizer was here at the White House yesterday. He works every day on this. I think she's going to be under pressure to do it. And the president is ready to sign that into law. He's been ready for over a year.
Excellent.
And in addition to USMCA, infrastructure, drug pricing, the drug crisis, the First Lady will be in Baltimore this morning speaking to a very large group of youth about a drug-free life. We just continue to push forward. You had Chad Wolf, the acting DHS secretary, on earlier. We're pushing forward on all of the promises the president made.
Well, could you tell us about the first phase of the China deal that China's suddenly making positive statements about?
Yes.
And are you guys ready to say yes to their invitation to send your delegation, Mnuchin and Lighthizer, over to Beijing? Do you know how close that yes is?
Well, Mnuchin, Lighthizer, others have been over to China many times. We've received the Chinese here many times. We continue to negotiate. But those forced technology transfers, the theft of intellectual property, the trade imbalance of $500 billion a year with the world's second largest economy, China, this makes no sense to people. So the president wants a deal, but President Trump always waits for the best deal. He could have had a deal last May. He left it on the table because he felt the Chinese changed the terms last moment. But we're getting really close, and that first phase is significant. But the president wants to do this in phases, in interim pieces, because it's such a large historic trade deal. But look what's already happened with Korea, through course, what's already happened with Japan, and what's happened with China. China is buying chicken. China long ago agreed to start buying our beef and our pork. So all of that continues. But we feel that that deal is going to happen, and we continue to work arduously toward that.
Kellyanne, we have a question about the events that unfolded yesterday. Former Navy Secretary Richard Spencer said the president does not understand the full definition of a warfighter.
Let's listen.
What message does that send to the troops?
Well, what message does it send?
That you can get away with things. We have to have good order and discipline. It's the backbone of what we do. I don't think he really understands the full definition of a warfighter. A warfighter is a profession of arms. And a profession of arms has standards that they have to be held to, and they hold themselves to.
There he was talking about the Eddie Gallagher case. You know, the president said, essentially, this guy's going to end up with his retirement via SEALs. And Mr. Spencer said, okay, apparently he was dealing with the White House lawyer, and he said, let's do this. We don't have to tell anybody, but we'll have a secret back channel way where he will get his retirement, but we will also have a review board. Ultimately, the president fired him before he could resign.
Well, and Secretary of Defense Mark Esper also, he fired him by saying, you know, excuse me, you can't try to make back deals and side deals on matters such as this. So I'm sure it hurts to lose your position, but the president stands by his decision, and he was there. He didn't do this impulsively or gingerly. He did this after a full review. And I think that Mr. Gallagher has been on TV many times, as has his wife, I believe. They've stated their case. But the president stands by his decision. The president also just this morning tweeted something that I think America sees full on, which is he will always stand behind our great warfighters. What this president has done for the military and for veterans is truly unprecedented. It's part of why he ran in the first place. He would tell us on the campaign trail, and certainly when we got here to the White House, lady and gentleman, that he can't believe veterans were literally dying waiting for care in Arizona now over 5 years ago. And look at all he's done with the VA Mission or Choice Act. 2.2 million veterans since June 4th have accessed private care through the VA Choice Act. We're told by the Secretary of the VA, Robert Wilkie. We've got the 24/7 VA hotline. He has a Whistleblower and Protection Act. Over 8,000 people at the VA have been fired for cause since President Trump came into office. The Vice President was just over in Iraq with the second lady.
Right,
this is a pro-military, pro-veteran president, and will continue that way. And he looked at these cases very carefully, made his decision.
And he's going to have plenty to talk about tonight when he goes down to Sunrise, Florida. Thank you very much for joining us on this very busy, short week. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Happy, blessed Thanksgiving to you and yours. Take
Happy
care.
Thanksgiving, Kellyanne.